What's going on, y'all? I'm Czar, and in this video, I want to answer a question from BubZ75 on YouTube. He wants to know, do I use all of my outboard gear when I'm mixing? And the answer to that is no. But what I want to do in this video is go over my outboard gear and show you what I'm using and how I'm using it. And before I reach for hardware, I've normally tried some plugins first because the plugins are easier to use, less recall and all that. So I've generally tried some plugins, and if I haven't gotten the sound that I want from that, then I'll reach for the hardware. That's normally how my workflow goes. I'm going to also tell you what plugins that I've normally tried before reaching for a certain piece of gear. All right, let's get started. Okay, so we'll start with this rack here, starting at the top, the West Audio LC-EQP. This is a passive EQ, tube EQ, and it is a Pultec. And it's unique from any other Pultec design I've seen because it allows different frequencies in the low boost and low cut. Most or all other Pultecs I've seen, the frequency for the low is the low boost and low cut. It's all tied to that one frequency, and you can't set them differently. Whereas this one, you can set the low boost and low cut to different frequencies. Before I reach for this, I like the Waves Puigtec and the Soft Tube Pultec are the two that I reach for the most before going to this, and I like this a lot on vocals. The Waves RS56 is a passive EQ that I like as well. Below that is the API T25 tube compressor. I haven't really worked this in my workflow yet, but I really like it on vocals and bass and guitars. Below that is the JDK R24. It's a dual channel EQ, and I haven't used this one in a while, but I used to use it as my bus EQ for a long time. Even if I'm not EQing, I used to love to just run signal through it to get some color. Below that is the Magnum-K compressor, and I love this on vocals. I have the plug-in as well, but I like this more than the plug-in, although the plug-in has a little more feature set to it. But I love this on vocals, and I love tracking vocals through this too. Sometimes I'll take this to the studio to track vocals, just depending on what type of vocals I'm tracking. But something very dynamic that I may need to add a little bit of air to, this is great to go to because this has a compressor. It's obviously a compressor, but then in the middle you have the K comp, which is a second compressor that focuses on the high mids, and then after that you have a parallel EQ, which of course has the air band, and then after that you have a limiter on the end of it as well. So a lot of signal processing can go on through here, and I can cover a lot of ground with this EQ. I wish it had a cut where I could cut some frequencies, but the EQ section on here is boost only. So it's got to be, something that I know I'm not going to do a lot of cutting with. I'm good with the vocal. I just need to boost it a little bit, or boost the little frequencies a little bit, but I can cover a lot of ground with this compressor. All right, on this rack, we're starting with the Manley ELOP on top. I really don't have plugins I go to before using this because this just outdoes so many plugins. Like for optos, I like the Wave CLA 2A, the Plugin Alliance Acme is an opto I like a lot. I think there's a few more, but I don't even normally go to plugins before I reach for this. I just go straight for this. If I have normally a pop vocal or singing vocal, I just love this opto compression here. It has a nice sheen to it, almost a little touch of brightness that it adds. A very smooth compressor, and it's one of my favorite opto compressors, and y'all know I love opto compressors. And speaking of opto compressors, the 500 series rack below that, so the first two in here is the Inwards Connection Brute, which is an opto compressor, and then the JDK V12, which is a VCA compressor. I'm not sure why these are even in this rack, honestly, because those two have been in my tracking lunchbox for years that I track vocals with. The Brute I like to use on singing vocals, and the JDK I like on rap vocals. I don't even remember why I moved them into this rack, to be honest. So they probably won't be staying here too long. But next to that is a pair of Trident EQs. Don't really use those. Next to that is the louder Liftoff Chop Shop. Normally when I need to reach for that, I'll go for the plug-in. I have the plug-in of this as well. I'm thinking about moving this to my tracking lunchbox as well, because this is a great EQ to track vocals with. But I really like it to thicken up some drums, as well as just do a simple tilt EQ on vocals as well. Next to that is the Moog EQ2. Not really using that one right now either, because a lot of times when I need that EQ2, this is the same EQ that's in the Moog Magnum-K that I just showed you. And I also have the plug-in version of this EQ2 as well. Next to that is the Chandler TG Opto. This one I love on drums. I love to slam drums with it, as well as bass is the two favorite things that I like to use this for. This one really doesn't have, there's not really a plugin I reached to before this as well. I'd say for drums, I've been really liking the Kit Plugins core compressor in that crush mode. The Waves Abbey Road RS124 is a good one to slam drums with, but really like slamming drums with this. I just wish it had a mix knob so I can do some parallel compression with it, but with Pipeline and Studio One, there has a built-in mix knob on that, so it's not that big of a deal. All right, this is what I call my mix bus lunchbox. So in here we've got a limited edition Alesia X filter, Smart C1LA, limited edition West Dione, and a West Audio Mimus. So we'll start with the left. So the way this is set up is, this is my bus compressor, the Dione, and it's hardwired into the Alesia EQ. So anything that goes into the Dione is automatically followed by the X filter. I don't use the X filter too much as a bus EQ, but usually if I'm doing, I don't know, like a pop mix and I just need to add some air to the overall mix, I love using the air on this X filter. I think it goes up to, it goes up to 28K, and that's normally where I leave it set in. And whenever I want to, just kick that high shelf in, I just turn it on and it's already set. I don't do any mid cuts or anything like that. Like, I just keep it set on that 28K, 24K, somewhere around there, and just to hit a quick button to add some air to the overall mix. Smart C1LA, I was using this as a bus compressor, and I honestly haven't used it once since I got the Dione. So the Dione has been my main bus compressor lately. Just still got the C1LA. I'm just gonna, deciding what I'm gonna do with it. Figured it would be, nice to flip back and forth if I was working on multiple mixes at the same time, but I don't normally work on multiple mixes. But even if that was the case, the Dione has this USB you see in the front. This is plug-in controlled, which is the reason I wanted it. And any mix that I do with it, I can save, that plug-in holds the settings of the hardware, so I'd never have to worry about recall. So the Mimus next to it is the same way. That is a 1176, and I like it a lot on rap vocals. Other FETs I go to before this is the Wave CLA 76, of course. The Purple Audio Plug-in Alliance is another one as well. And the McDSP Ultimate Compressor 1176 in there. I like that one too. But this one to me just sounds better than those plugins. And again, it has recall, so I never have to worry about setting this back up. Just save those settings in the plugin, and it's all good. And in this rack here, starting with the Communion Lab 7721, I was using this as a bus compressor before I got the Dione. I got to refine how this is going to work in my workflow. I've been using it on background vocals though, but absolutely love this compressor, and has a great amount of glue factor to it. You can glue things really well with this compressor. Below that is one of my favorite channel strips, the Communion Lab 7603. This is probably my favorite channel strip on vocals, and I love using this EQ on vocals as well when I want like a Neve 1073 style EQ. Plugins I reach for that before going to this is the Wave Shep 73, the Waves V Series, and Most recently, the Kit Plugins BBN105 is a great Neve channel strip as well. But absolutely love the preamp and EQ on this channel strip. Below that is a PreSonus RC500. Now this I was using as a front end for my YouTube and podcast, but the preamp, there's something going on with the preamp. When a quick transient hits it, it distorts, and not even a loud transient. It seems like a quick transient. I've noticed it when I was testing it out in the studio, and I think I had someone rapping on it, and it would just get this quick distortion. Or if I'm doing voiceover, if I'm recording a podcast with it and I laugh really loud, it'll distort a little bit. And it's been doing that ever since I bought it. But for the most part, I never got it fixed. I really should have. But for the most part, I've just been using it as voiceover. And, I don't really get loud if I'm doing YouTube videos or something. So I never really worried about fixing that. And I actually went to look into fixing it recently, and it's going to cost $240 to fix it. And I'm not going to pay that right now for something I'm not really using. I wasn't really a fan of the compressor on it, but I like the EQ on it. So it's still a part of my front end chain for YouTube videos and podcasting, because what I do is so right now I'm using a Camden EC1 is the mic pre for my YouTube or podcasting. That goes into this RC500 where I'm just using the EQ, where I'm EQing to get it the way I want it. And then after that, it's going to the last piece you see here, which is a DBX, what is that, 266. And I'm just using that for a little bit of compression and a gate. So below the RC500 is a DBX 160A. I did a mix for someone and received this as, I say payment, but a trade-off. They basically gave me this compressor for doing a mix for them. It's hooked up. I think I do have it connected, but I don't really use it. I haven't used it. Below that is the Blackline Audio 17 compressor. That is a 1176. I really like that compressor. I haven't really used it since I got the West Audio Mimus though, so I'm trying to decide if I'm going to keep it here. I might take it to the studio and use it for tracking with, but that West Audio Mimus I like on vocals. This one, the 17, I like on drums and vocals, so I might keep it here as a drum compressor and then use the West Audio on vocals, but haven't really used it since I got the Mimus. But yeah, there's a look at all of my, I guess we can go ahead and look at my tracking lunchbox as well here. Hold on. So this is what I call my tracking lunchbox. This isn't anything that I mix with, but I guess it still counts as outboard gear that I have. But I used to take this studio to studio to track with. I've been working out of the same studio for the last few years, so this has really just been sitting here, honestly. You see these two slots open here. This is where those two compressors in my other 500 series rack was, the Brute and the V12. So, with this, I had a pair, which is the Hilbys, a pair of preamps if I needed to do some stereo stuff. And then the little double pre and the Neve 511 I would use on vocals. And those two compressors I would have in here to compress with. So I'll probably move those back over here at some time. But that's a look at all of my outboard gear and how I use it. If you like this video, I appreciate a thumbs up. If you want to continue to see content from me, then you know what to do. All right, any questions, comments, let me know, and I'll catch y'all next time. I invite you to check out my podcast, the Faders Up Podcast, a podcast about pro audio and beyond. Season 3 is now underway, and in this season, we'll be doing a lot of topics requested by listeners. So if you have a topic you want to hear discussed on the podcast, email us, DM us, or join us in our Facebook group, Faders Up Podcast, and let us know. And if you haven't checked out the podcast yet, I have a link in the description that'll take you to the page.